Hello, and welcome to the Enneagram in a Movie podcast, part of the Awareness to Action podcast network. This is the podcast that looks at one film in each episode and uses it to explain the 9 types and 3 instinctual biases of the Enneagram model of personality. One movie, one type. My name is Mario Sakura, and I'll be joined by Maria Jose Munita and Tamer Zanatti. We are the principals of Awareness to Action International, a global consulting and training company that specializes in practical applications of the Enneagram. You can find out more about us and our work at awareness-to-action.com. In the meantime, make some popcorn, sit back, and enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Enneagram in a Movie podcast. We're very excited today. We're going to be talking about the movie Contact and Ennea-Type Five with our special guest, Russ Hudson. We're here also with Tamer and Maria Jose, as always. Really thrilled to have Russ with us. We're going to talk about Contact, and then we're going to talk about some other stuff, too. So this will probably be a 2-part episode. So we're really looking forward to this. Russ, welcome.
Thank you, Mario. Great to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Tamer, Maria Jose, how you guys doing today?
Great. Looking forward to this session with our special guest.
Yeah.
Sessions, really, because we're having 2.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. I mean, to have the 4 of us, having Russ with us is creating completely different dynamics. So I love that. I got bored of the 3 of us guys. So
nothing personal, right?
And no pressure, right?
Yes.
That's a good advertisement for the podcast. One of the hosts grew bored. But you'll love it as a listener. Right? No. All right. So Russ Hudson needs no introduction. If you're listening to this podcast, you're familiar with the Enneagram. And if you're familiar with the Enneagram, you're familiar with Russ. Russ is the major teacher of the Enneagram. He is a teacher, certainly of mine, and also Maria Jose's and Tamer's. We've known Russ. I've known Russ since, a whole long time ago, I guess mid-90s, and been very, very influential on the whole Enneagram world, but on our understanding of the system in particular. Okay. Russ, before we get going too much, since you are our guest, where can people find out more about you and your work?
Well, probably the easiest place these days is my website, which is very easy to remember, www.russhudson.com. RUSSHUDSON.
Great. So I haven't been to your website. I was there when you posted it, but I'm sure there are a lot of great resources there. And if you ever have the opportunity to sit in with Russ in one of his trainings, please take the opportunity. Well worth your time. So Russ, we've taught together before. Yep. We've done various things, and we both have a love of movies.
Yes.
And Maria Jose, that made me think of our time together in Santiago all those years ago. How about sharing that story with us?
The story when we were eating king crab, or the
Well,
movie?
There was that one. Yes, that was a very fond afternoon. But tell us the movie
Yeah, so
story.
we were going to Valparaiso, and I was driving, and I was so excited. It was, I think, 2012. It was the Latin American conference in Santiago. And I got to drive Mario and Ross to Valparaiso, really nice city in the coast.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait to hear all these pearls of wisdom coming from these 2 kind of major teachers. When I suddenly realized that all they talked about was movies. Now, not any movies, but zombie movies. So I was kind of disappointed. But over the years, I've come to cherish those memories and enjoy every time I see Russ and Mario talking about the zombie movies. And Tom Condon, as I mentioned the other day, who also loves these kind of movies. So I've always wondered what is it about zombie movies that made them love you so much?
Well, go ahead, Russ.
I don't know. I think when Mario and I were talking about it, we were talking about A, they're fun, but B, yes, they're always about something. And I just noticed that through the years, zombie movies and more broadly, movies of horror or shock tend to be about the shadow issues of the society at the time. And so it's fun to sort of try and figure out what is it about this movie of an absurd situation that's actually getting under people's skin. It's not just the blood and stuff, these are about.
Although that's fun.
That's fun. That's crazy. Look, head comes off. Look at that. But but more to the point, they're always about something that's eating us collectively. I use the example, in the United States, in the noughts, in the last decade, there were a lot of movies about torture in horror films. And that wasn't around before exactly like that. But what maybe were Americans subconsciously upset about at the time? What were we doing to prisoners in various parts of the world? So there's always a really interesting thread to these things, a mythological element to them. That is there, not in all of these movies, of course. Some of them are just dumb and somebody chasing someone around with a weapon or something. But many of the good ones are actually about something more than what they appear.
I just rewatched the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, wow.
Which is about zombies gathering at the mall.
Right.
Right. And the people running from the zombies go to the, hide at the mall, and the zombies trying to get in. And there's just something in the nature of these mindless zombies that compels them to descend on the shopping mall. Right?
Yes. And funny thing, you don't even have to be in the movie to go to the mall and see zombies in those days.
That's right. And to the point of the philosophical connotations of this, right? I mean, in philosophy, there is the zombie problem, right? Yeah. So, if you take consciousness out of an individual, right? What is the difference? Okay, what is the difference between us and a zombie? Okay, it's a question that has haunted philosophers, right? And also there's this element of, there's always in every zombie movie somebody you love or the main hero loves becomes a zombie. And they have to face the choice of, do I kill this person and put them out of their misery of being a mindless zombie, or, and so forth. So there's a lot deeper things going on in zombie movies.
Yeah, I mean, Maria Jose, you were getting all of these pearls of wisdom, but you were not noticing them. I mean, lots of philosophical deep discussion that you missed.
Because she thinks we're just full of crap. That's the thing. She thinks we're just
probably
making
does.
It's a really wise way to rationalize that you like zombie movies.
It's very good. Very good. I think from a certain point of view, you could look out at the world and feel like you're watching a zombie movie. In the sense that the whole original idea behind the Enneagram was that we would wake up to what has got us hypnotized, what's got us in a trance, what makes us devour and spoil and destroy the planet out of our unconscious consumerism, for example, our voraciousness. So, of course, the zombies are us. And how do you survive in a world full of zombies? How do you stay awake when if you fall asleep, someone might bite you and turn you into a zombie? So it's a little closer to what we're doing than we might like to think sometimes.
Yes. Absolutely
I buy that. I buy that.
I also just have to point out, Russ, I don't know if you remember this, but at the end of the Dawn of the Dead, as they're playing the credits, they used the Jim Carroll band "People Who Died" as the closing song, which is just watching the end credits are worth sitting through the movie, even if you're not a zombie movie fan. Now, I'm also going to point out, Maria Jose, that whole conversation in Santiago actually started out with Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I was trying to understand how anybody could put mayonnaise on French fries. And so that started a whole John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson.
And you still don't get it, right?
I still don't get it. Yes.
Well, still have work to do.
Yeah. I'm more with you there, Maria Jose. I cannot stand ketchup on my French fries. I just don't like it. I go with mayo or nothing. I lived in Europe, so there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So now that we got our culinary idiosyncrasies out of the way and our zombie movie rationale, the movie we're going to talk about is Contact with Jodie Foster, and Matthew McConaughey's hair as the leading actors in the movie. About
You're just envious.
I am so envious. What human being has hair like that? My goodness. And so it was released in 1997. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, had a very interesting background. I was doing a little research on the movie. Actually, the idea came from Carl Sagan,
right,
a real hero of ours, the science popularizer and scientist, who I think he passed away when this movie was being made. He died fairly young. It started with a treatment that he wrote, and at the end, it is dedicated to him. And you can see his traces in the movie for sure, his influences. But I also think there were some things in there he might have been a little frustrated with, but that's another story. But they did do a good job on the science, I think. So good movie. General reactions to the movies, guys. Oh, no, I'll tell you what, let me summarize it real quick first, okay? So Jodie Foster plays a young woman, starts off as a girl, then becomes a woman through the course of the movie, who is a scientist on the search for extraterrestrial life. SETI, yes. Her passion for this started young. She was into ham radios when she was a child, had a very good relationship with her father, who dies when she is young. And a lot of the movie is influenced by that relationship. Okay, there's certainly father-daughter themes throughout this movie that are significant. So she is a brilliant scientist and dedicates her career to this search, much to the chagrin of her boss, who thinks she's wasting her time on a backwater effort. But lo and behold, they do discover a signal coming from people not of this world, and that sets off a whole attempt to understand the signal and then to make contact with the extraterrestrials. So there's a lot more that happens that we'll talk about, but the word contact works on a lot of levels in this movie. And we think that, and the idea of doing this for the Type 5 was Russ's suggestion. Russ, tell me about the title and the significance of it.
Sure. It's really a clever title, as you're saying, and I'm pretty sure it was Carl Sagan who chose that title, and because he had a book that came out also with the same title. I'm not sure whether the book was made from the movie script or vice versa, but anyway.
Yeah, so what happened, just so you know, they started it as a movie treatment, couldn't get it made, he turned it into a book, then it became a movie.
There we go. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so, there is the element of this young woman who is, in our view, a very well-drawn Enneagram 5, who is trying to make contact with some kind of source of knowledge, wisdom, to have the big answers. But I think the film deals very much with what I see as one of the major challenges for Point 5, which is that real knowing, not in the sense of just remembering something, but really knowing something, entails the sense of contact. It's about the difference between the Greek notion of gnosis and just information. And the 5 is always struggling to accumulate more and more information in the idea that eventually that will lead to wisdom or knowing or knowledge. But knowledge entails a sort of contact with our humanity, with our experience. Yet the whole psychological pattern of 5 is depicted in the film is a contraction away from contact, an avoidance of contact, the feeling like if I get into contact, I'll lose myself. But in so doing, we start to disconnect from some of the very important ingredients we need to actually come to knowing and real understanding. So it's a journey toward embracing a more total humanity. Now, I would say, I'm sure Mario would agree, some aspects of the film do this in a sort of ham-fisted way, kind of overstating it so that the folks back home will get it. But thematically, it's right. Thematically, it's about trying to bring together the elements in us that have been split off from each other. And in language of psychology, deals a lot with what psychologists call a schizoid detachment. We aren't the only ones to have that. All types can have elements of schizoid detachment, to be sure. But fives are kind of the poster children of this particular psychological defense, which is not dissociation. It's not checking out.
Right.
Fives are generally not checked out, but they're detached. They're distant. There's a way of not wanting to be touched by my experience in a certain way. And that is very much a theme in the film. And Jodie Foster's character going on a journey to find a reconnection with herself, contact with herself, a trust in reality again, you might say.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you. So we tend to like to cover the sort of key ideas, sort of the traditional descriptors of the five there, and then we talk about how we usually talk about the five in terms of strategy. I'm going to take that second part first, and then I'll ask you to touch on sort of the classic notions of the five. But we refer to the five as somebody whose preferred strategy is striving to feel detached. Right. And, and we always point out that it's not that fives don't have emotions. It's not that fives, can't connect and love people and be in relationships and all of that. But there is this safety felt in creating a buffer between themselves and the messiness of emotional life many times. Right. We also like to point out that these strategies can always be acted out in either an adaptive way or a maladaptive way. The ability to detach is an important one, right? Because we do need to be able to step back from our emotions. Okay? We just don't want to be stuck in this pattern of doing it pathologically or in a habitual way that causes us more suffering than it does benefit. Tell us, Russ, about kind of the classical vice, virtue, and fixation of the five, if you would.
Given by Oscar Chazo, the passion associated with point five is avarice. Sometimes confused, people use other words that I find muddy the waters with gluttony, the passion of the seven. Yeah. Acquisition is gluttony. Withholding is avarice. They're not the same thing.
Right.
And people don't always understand that distinction. Now, when this material was being concocted, it was being concocted by monks and nuns in the deserts of Egypt some, almost 2,000 years ago. So the idea that when we think of avarice now, we tend to think about greed. We tend to think about withholding money, particularly, accumulating wealth. And I suppose that could be part of it. But oddly, most of the fives I've known, even the very wealthy ones, don't care about their wealth. It's I would suggest that some of the biggest fives that I know are very humble in terms of the houses they live in, what they do with their money.
Warren Buffett's an example.
Warren Buffett, great example. Yeah. There are others we could think of, but yes, I see avarice as something. The idea of the passions was developed by people who were noticing obsessive thought patterns and emotional reactions that troubled them when they were trying to meditate. It's a withholding of the self. And you see that very much in the film. It's a withholding of emotional expression. It's a withholding of my heart, really. The passions are always in some sense about our emotions. And so this contracted withholding, protecting myself by detaching is really what we're talking about here. And doing that feels like a way to protect my heart, because fives underneath that feel very fragile often. If you take the trouble to really explore with them, they feel very overwhelmed and fragile, too sensitive in a sense. And so this contraction feels like the only way I can be safe. So it serves the function of safety. But the other thing is that fives get overwhelmed by other people's thoughts, opinions, and so forth. So from a very young age, there's an imprint that I need to get away to find my own thoughts. I need to detach in order to understand something. And so as fives mature, that pattern keeps going, but they never quite understand that strategy, although it worked well enough when I was a little kid, actually diminishes or attenuates my capacity to understand things. Fortunately, knowledge comes through to us anyway, but it makes it harder and slower. The other thing was non-attachment. Do you want me to talk about that?
Yeah, talk about the virtue related to point five.
Well, this is very interesting because often the psychological strategy is very close to a real human attitude or orientation that's helpful and necessary. To put it the way you were just putting it, the maladaptive strategy looks an awful lot like the adaptive strategy. And it's a real journey to sort of sense from the inside, what's the difference?
Right.
So, the maladaptive strategy, detachment is a kind of unconscious rejection. It's setting up a wall, like the old Pink Floyd album, where, you guys are over there and doing all your craziness, and I'm over here, thank you very much. But it's also a wall interiorly against my sensate experience and my emotional experience. And the more difficult of a childhood I had as a 5, the more traumatized I was, the more I want that wall there. I notice what's going on, but I don't want to feel it.
Right.
So non-attachment, though, is a different thing. When we get really grounded in our experience, when we become more relaxed into our natural humanity, which is no small matter, there is a natural way in which we can notice our experiences without being swept away by them. We can notice our emotions without being completely identified and lost in them. You can notice, wow, I feel sad today, without filling your head with stories about your sadness, for example. You can notice that you're angry without turning into a maniac. And this, in a certain way, you could almost say that the aim of the Enneagram is to help us develop the part of us that is not a reaction machine. And so non-attachment is a response, an intelligent response that usually has an element of kindness in it, because it also has the understanding of what Buddhists call, and Buddhists are big on non-attachment, what they would call impermanence. Like, hard to be mean to everybody when you realize we're all a goner.
Right.
And so it comes from a seeing the truth as opposed to a kind of reaction of rejection and distancing.
Great, thanks for those insights and that great explanation. There's this connection between compassion and non-attachment that's so critical, and I really don't think you can have one without the other most of the time.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah,
I don't know if you've ever seen the Joan Halifax TED Talk, where she talks about, basically when you watch it, she's talking about the interconnectedness of points 8, 5, and 2. Right. In order to be truly compassionate, you need to have detachment, the non-attachment that you're talking about, but you also need strength.
That's right.
Yeah. And she talks about having a strong back and a soft front. So it's a great description of what you're talking about there. Good.
Awareness to Action offers a unique approach to applying the Enneagram professionally with leaders and organizations, as well as for personal development. What makes us stand apart is our Enneagram expertise and focus on understanding human nature.
We know people because we see people. And this is a skill set that can be taught and learned. Human nature is complex and simple at the same time. Our mission is to help people see clearly and act accordingly. Why? Because the ability to see ourselves and others clearly and honestly is essential. It enables us to act in more adaptive and useful ways.
The Multicultural Team in Awareness to Action will help you learn tools and practices to become more aware and also to understand and engage people more effectively. Learn more at awareness-to-action.com. Join us at 2021 for exciting learning opportunities.
So before we move on, I think that we haven't mentioned the connecting points, which we usually do. And in the 4.5, the connecting points are 8 and 7. And when 5 goes to 7, first to 8, it's the neglected strategy, as we call it. And it's kind of like avoided because I distort it. And striving to feel powerful feels truly overwhelming. Talking about what you were saying before, Russ, that's kind of the opposite of what I want to feel. I want to feel overwhelmed by this power. But you could see in the movie that how she goes to 8, how she uses that strategy. She's not
shy.
Yeah, she's not shy, but it's also she's not that effective. Or
Right.
she is, but it's kind of a bit. She could be more. Yeah,
it's almost like she's wearing somebody else's clothes when she's going to in some way, which often happens to us at these connecting.
That's true.
Yeah, there's a difference for me between unconscious aggression,
right,
and empowerment, right. So 8 is really about, for me, partially at least, that's the discrimination. What is it to be empowered? What is it to be activated where you're countering some kind of stupidity or wrong?
And with point 7, which is the support strategy, which we use as well in adaptive and maladaptive ways, you could see how she was so excited about these things. There was 7 all over, and and she was this information blizzard when there was something that she felt passionate about. So I think that you can see both connecting points in the movie.
Yeah, I'd say that figuring out both of those strategies is so important for the journey of 5. And you see both, as you're just saying, Maria Jose, in the film. It does deal with that very well. I would just say, when I look back at myself as a youngster, I was so 5-ish. I would even suggest that had somebody encountered me nowadays as I was as a child or a young adult, you would have definitely placed me in the spectrum. I didn't like textures. My food had to be a certain way. Everything overwhelmed me. I had next to no social skills. I definitely was such a card-carrying, obvious 5. But it was actually through the Gurdjieff work, which was very 8 and very much demanding for me to show up and do difficult things and take on challenges and do physical labor and develop myself in another way. I really, as many limitations as I saw in some of the attitudes there, that was the perfect ingredient for me to heal or transform in my nervous system some of what I was trapped in. So I kind of think these inner lines, some people say they don't count. I don't understand that. I think they're so important.
Yeah, we're in complete agreement with you there. We do think there's real utility in thinking about the connecting points.
For people of other types, sometimes it's not easy to understand the experience of a 5. And I remember, Russ, once we had a dinner in my house, and you gave me this picture to understand that. Do you remember that, or?
I don't remember the picture, but I remember being at your house and having lovely conversations and meeting the rest of your family.
It was really amazing because it made me understand the experience and be compassionate with when 5s try to protect themselves from the overwhelming emotions and whatever. You told me somehow like it feels like you have multiple words collapsing together into one dimension. So you see the street and the house at the same time, different dimensions. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. It's overwhelming, and you can. It's like you have a radio on, but it isn't zeroed into one channel. So you're getting a lot of radio signals at the same time. So then you want to contract.
Yeah, and I felt that in some of the scenes of the movie where Jodie Foster would be like running away from situations where there are lots of people or intense emotions, like after having sex with Joss. And it's like being overwhelmed and wanting really to have like safe place, protect herself from this overwhelming.
So, Tamer, give me your reaction to the movie.
I watched it before, and I always loved it every time I watched it. And I think, this kind of movies where you see the transformation of the type at certain point of time, these are the movies that I like. I mean, where you see side of the type, and then at certain point of time, a certain event happens and transformation happens. So after the machine, she was in the machine and she was there, and she had this experience. She came back as a completely different person, which is like a kind of evolving into a real life, a real 5, having the virtue of the non-attachment and embracing both worlds of emotions, connecting, as well as making use of the mind and intellectualizing things. So So that was really amazing for me.
Unlike, say, The Big Lebowski, where the character does not change a bit from beginning to end, as we talked about with the
definitely abides.
Exactly.
The dude abides, yes, for all of eternity. All right, good. Maria Jose, how about you? What was your general reaction to the movie?
I liked it, and I was wondering why you were making those comments about the movie being not completely kind of loving it, but I think I'm not so attached to the US-centric narrative of the movie. Right. It doesn't matter to me that much. So I took the movie for what it was, not with those subtle messages. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed to see how five-ish it was, not just the detachment, but I enjoyed the skeptic kind of mindset of everything.
Right.
So even the president was like trying to go by the facts. And so I enjoyed seeing that, and I enjoyed what Tamer said, that her ability to integrate things, but not necessarily to turn away from what she originally believed. It was more of an integration than a complete change. And I enjoyed that.
And on the US-centric narrative, Maria, I think they did well. Where, I mean, she was presenting always that she's criticizing this US kind of... So it presented the US-centric views and the criticism to that as well. So I think they did well on that.
I didn't notice any of that stuff. I don't know why, but I don't know. No, I'm kidding. Russ, what was your general reaction to the movie?
Yeah, I saw it when it first came out, and a couple times many years ago, but I just watched it again in preparation for our gathering here. And, it holds up pretty well. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought the dealing with her journey particularly was done very beautifully, honoring what was noble and real about her, but also being real about her limitations and where she was stuck. And I agree with what you said, Maria Jose. It really was, to me, not about her going from this to this. It was about an integration where that beautiful discernment and rational rigor that she had was not lost by her experience, but integrated into a larger and more compassionate view of herself and humanity in the universe. What it really triggers for me for the five is, as long as our intellect is being used, no matter how sharp our rationality, if it's still in service of defending a sense of self, it will be a blunt and ineffective instrument in terms of its ultimate purpose. When she is in the cosmic realm of wherever the heck she flies off to, and she says, I had no idea.
Yes.
Accurate,
so
true. There are realms of the human experience that what can you say? What Jung called the numinous, right? Mm-hmm. She's a numinous experience and comes back. And now there's a humility and a compassion, as well as her rapier intellect, and you get the feeling she's going to go on and have an amazing life.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about that very thing in the second half of our conversation today, because I think it's such an important point for people who are interested in the Enneagram, people who are doing work on themselves, and something that really needs to be discussed more in these circles. So there's certainly some things we want to come back to there. But for me, I was actually kind of surprised when I was looking at doing a little bit of research and saw that the aggregate Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie was only 66%, meaning that it wasn't, it's a lot of the movies we've had have been in the 90s and 80s as far as positive reviews against negative. So it was a very popular movie. It made $190 million at the box office. But that was $1997, so it's real money. But it wasn't as popular with the critics as I thought it would have been based on it. I think it holds up very well also. It's certainly a movie of its time, especially with the Matthew McConaughey character. I was trying to think of, 1997, there had to be somebody he was based on, because there were so many of those sort of Oprah, Eckhart Tolle, kind of characters around at that time, but I couldn't get exactly the right, comparison. So
we could guess Rob Lowe.
Well, yeah, Rob Lowe is easy. Yeah, Rob Lowe is a very thinly veiled Ralph Reed, who a despicable character from my view. Yeah, so and certainly Bill Clinton made a good stand-in for Bill Clinton. So that was one of the interesting things about these movies, is that there were a lot of real life, first of all, the president, but also newscasters. Larry King made an appearance, as well as a number of other people. Bernard Shaw, it was nice to see, from CNN in the 90s. And there was a lot of criticism of the movie for including live people in that regard. Let's see.
He went on to do. He also did that in Forrest Gump. Robert Zemeckis, same director.
Right. Yes,
same kind of method.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing for me that I thought really held up were the special effects, given the age of the movie. Right? It was 24 years ago, but I was impressed at how well done the special effects were, especially that opening scene, right, where it zooms away from the Earth and goes throughout the whole universe before ending up back in her as a reflection in her eye. The special effects people and the post-production folks would watch 2001: Space Odyssey to get themselves in the right mindset, and there were certainly allusions to 2001 throughout the movie that maybe we can touch on. Go ahead, Maria.
I think it was easier to believe all those special effects than the romance between Ellie and that couple. Just in real life, that would never happen, I think.
Yeah, so Matthew McConaughey's character, Palmer Joss, boy, just the name makes me want to smack the guy, right? And he plays this, how did he describe himself? A cleric without the cloth or something like that.
It's like a reverend. They call him a reverend without the,
Yes, and so he plays a kind of hybrid spiritual New Age sort of advisor to important people, including the president, and with this mixture of, sort of light evangelical Christianism, sort of, or probably not even evangelical, but mixed with a lot of New Agey kind of stuff. I don't know, Russ, how would you describe Palmer Joss?
I saw him as sort of representing the spirituality of the day, for sure.
Yes.
But also the spiritual search, certainly in American culture, but in other parts of the world too, that I've encountered. Why people start getting interested in the Enneagram is trying to find a more embracing vision of spirituality than traditional religion. He wasn't ready to sort of jettison traditional religion altogether.
Right.
He was using it as a foundation, but he was trying to represent a more humane version of it, thus his popularity and so forth. And so I think he was supposed to, I'm not sure it always worked so well in the film, but I think he was supposed to represent a parallel kind of sincere search. Like, he wasn't just buying into all the old religious stuff. He was using it as to search for what was important to him in a very parallel way to what Jodie Foster's character, Ellie, was doing.
Yes.
She wasn't just accepting her boss's view of science as here's our little mechanical box and that's all there is to reality. She had a sense there was something more. And so there was something about them as a parallelism in this human search, you might say.
Yes. And I am probably being unfairly tough on Palmer Joss, and it probably has to do with my jealousy over the hair.
Absolutely.
And Matthew McConaughey's good looks. I mean, how can you not hate that guy? And
well, he had to be charming enough to win over Ellie, so there's that.
Yeah, there is that, and she was a tough audience, right? Yeah. So, but I agree that the romance was a bit forced between the two of them, and I don't think that that's Jodie Foster's strength as an actress, as talented an actress as she is. She's not necessarily a romantic leading lady for probably a variety of reasons, So yeah, a little tough to see that.
Are you interested in learning more about our approach to the Enneagram?
go to awareness-to-action.com and check out our certification program. We offer a clear, concise, business-friendly, and science-minded approach while maintaining the depth of traditional approaches to the system. At Awareness to Action International, we're the leading innovators in the theory and pragmatic applications of this system to all aspects of the work environment, including leadership and personal development, team building, diversity and culture, and managing change. However, this approach is not just for the business world. A lot of people who attend our trainings do so for their own self-development or spiritual growth. Our certification program is one of only a handful of curricula accredited as a school by the International Enneagram Association. It is currently being conducted virtually and combines live sessions with asynchronous learning. Again, find out more at awareness-to-action.com. So it starts off, I'll kind of go back here, the opening scene, like we said, starts with this pulling back from the earth, ends up with her on a ham radio, making contact with people and becoming immersed with that. Go ahead, Riose.
So could you listen what was being said? Because I had subtitles. So there was a lot of things said, and it was the history backwards.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
radio broadcasts.
Yes.
It was setting you up for the movie because the radio broadcast traveling at the speed of light is going out into space. So as you're going further out into space, you're going back in time. And so it's showing, the Einsteinian principle here and why it takes a while for those radio messages to get out into the cosmos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And most people wouldn't know that.
Yes. And it does set up an interesting sort of dynamic when they do make contact, because the message that gets sent back just happens to be Adolf Hitler, which was the first, broadcast that made it that far out into space. So young Ellie has, a very close relationship with her father. She never knew her mother. Her father dies when she is young. Her father was very influential on her, talked to her about space. And there was a line he used there because she said, "Do you think there are people out there in space?" And he said, "Well, if there's not, it's an awfully big waste of space," which is a line that comes back. And so after her father dies, there's an interesting conversation between her and the family priest, I guess, at the funeral. Anybody remember what the priest said to her and what her response was?
He was, she was distraught and devastated by the death of her father. And the priest said, what a lot of people in traditional religion would say, there's things that happen and we don't know why. It's just God's will. And you can see her just shutting down around that. Like,
Yes.
If this is what God does, I'm not interested. It's kind of her inner decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
And her reaction was, "I should have kept the medicine closer."
Yes.
Right, because he apparently had a heart condition, and she felt she could have saved him had she had the medicine closer.
Which is, by the way, the shadow of her 8. Mm-hmm. I should have handled this. I should have been in control. I should have known what to do.
Yes. Yes.
Well, at the same time, also is like pushing away this non-understanding space and coming up with an analysis and rationale for why this happened. So this is her way of dealing with the situation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So we next see her. She is in Puerto Rico at I tried, Mariose.
At a seaboat.
Yeah, you did the same. I mean, you were just as good as they were in the movie, trying to speak Spanish.
Which
so
is
that's
not very good, is what you're saying. So she is at a telescope where they are, it's a radio telescope, actually. So they are listening for sounds rather than looking at images and searching for extraterrestrial life. It is here where she meets Palmer Joss. They have a little affair, and he gives her he's eating a box of Cracker Jack, and he offers her the prize that is in the box of candy, and it's a compass. And that compass comes to be a symbol of integrity and moral direction throughout the movie. So it kind of plays through. Talk more. Any other comments? We've talked a little bit about the relationship between the two of them.
To me, what was interesting was when he leaves, or she leaves, actually. She has to go because it's her time. He says, how can I reach you? And I don't think he knew what he was getting into, because he wanted a phone number and didn't know how hard it would be to reach her. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, she was triggered. She became too vulnerable.
Yes.
She actually kind of liked the guy, and like her detachment felt threatened, so she reestablished her distance, her walls, and so forth, and did not. He gave her his number, but she leaves it in Puerto Rico when she leaves.
Yes.
The other thing I think about that whole Puerto Rico section, it establishes very early her utter disrespect and disregard for authority. Her view that people, just because they have money and power, doesn't mean they're intelligent, and they're most likely stupid because they put their life into this, right?
Yes.
So she doesn't have a lot of respect just because somebody has a title or a position. And she is willing to joust with them. Her boss is introduced at that point, Drummond, played by the great Tom Skerritt.
Yes.
Who comes over probably an Enneagram 3, I would guess.
He felt 3-ish to me.
Yeah.
Probably an Enneagram 3, who is also interested in science, but he's way, way, way more pragmatic than she is.
More political.
Yes. And
he understands politics, and she doesn't care about politics.
Yes, and we'll certainly come back to that a little bit later, because that plays in the plot of the movie for sure. Yeah, so agreed. So she did say, when he said when Palmer Joss says, "How can I get in touch with you?" She says, "Leave me your number." Right, so it's basically, "Don't call me, I'll call you," sort of thing. And as Russ said, she leaves his number in the hotel.
After she left, she went out of the door. She started to remember how did her father die, and I think that explains. This explains how does this feel so tough for her, building relationship, and how overwhelming, and she does not want to go through the same pain again.
Yes. And she and the other thing, I sometimes pointed this to people who are trying to romance a 5. I said, study what he does. He does everything wrong. He's too quick. He's too insistent. He's too mushy. He's just after her, and she just,
Yes.
I think 5s and 7s both win the prize for flightiness when people are trying to make claims. And and had he gone a little slower, she might have made another decision, but she was overwhelmed by him.
I like Mario, the metaphor that you make with the squirrels. The 5s and the squirrels.
Yes.
Can you tell us about this metaphor?
Yes. Well, it's if you want to pet a squirrel, you can't chase it, right? I mean, you have to hold out the bread or the nut or whatever, and slowly let it inch toward you, so or else it'll flee. I think the other thing that happened there was he asked her about her father.
Yeah.
And that's what made her say, "Oh, look at the time, I have to go." And, and then she had the flashback, I believe, to him dying.
Yeah, he said, "Must be hard being alone."
Yes. Yeah. And avarice there, too. This is a great example of avarice. As I've said many times, avarice is not withholding knowledge and information, as the old cliche is. She would have given you, if you were interested in radio astronomy, she'd have talked your ears off. If you wanted to talk about SETI, there was no end to her download. It's withholding information and knowledge about me. Mm-hmm. As soon as he was probing into knowing her on a deeper level, walls came up.
Yes. Just a couple other quick points before we move to New Mexico. She was, to your point, Russ, telling him about the stars.
Yeah.
Right before they end up
quite happily.
Yes, she was having a good old time.
Yeah.
And then he says the same exact thing to her that her father said. About, if there are not people up there, it'd be a real waste of space, right?
Yes.
And then she was, ka-ching, right? He's in, okay? And so, again, the other time she, became renewed in her interest in him was when Tom Skerritt referred to him as Father Palmer, right? Which I thought was interesting. So again, a lot of father-daughter things going on there. Anyway, funding gets cut in Puerto Rico. They head off to New Mexico.
Yes.
To the what do they
VLA.
call that?
Very large array. I've been there.
Array.
It's an amazing
really?
place. Yeah.
I'll bet it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which is a bunch of radio telescopes, a whole bunch of them pointed at the stars, right?
Yeah, and the way in which she gets the funding, it's when I think that she looked very 80ish and like, tried to make it happen.
Yes.
In a very kind of forceful way, but not that grounded as an would be.
She's appearing in front of this group of people who she is seeking investing from, and when I forget exactly what the one guy says that sets her off, but she really just lets them know they're a bunch of idiots, right?
Yep.
And this is when she gets the attention of S.R. Haddon, played by the great John Hurt, who I would watch in anything. So they get the funding, and then she is out one night listening and starts to hear what sounds like a signal. Right? And this is where she gets very excited, goes rushing back to where the other scientists are, and they realize that someone is broadcasting beats in prime number sequences, right? 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, etc. Okay. And this is the signal. And she talks about mathematics being the language. So this is an interesting piece of conversation to me about the nature of communication and the reliability of communication. Any thoughts on that?
Well, we don't have a lot of examples of talking with extraterrestrials, but, in terms of, we can say that in terms of human societies, that mathematics, geometry and mathematics tend to be universal languages. For example, when I bring folks to Egypt and we're looking at the ancient temples, we don't necessarily understand everything or even we can read the hieroglyphics, but we don't know what they mean exactly. However, a lot of the principles of the temples are encoded in the geometry and the mathematics of the temple, which are everywhere once you start to look. Of course, a lot of Egyptologists aren't trained to look at things that way, but they're there for anyone who cares to check it. There is a way of conveying some kind of understanding through mathematics that doesn't depend on language. And indeed, when Carl Sagan was part of this, when we sent out our Voyagers into deep space and put that little plaque on them, the golden plaque, to sort of, should any extraterrestrial civilization find this and retrieve it, the message was in pictures and mathematics. They probably don't speak English or Spanish or Arabic or anything, so that's going to be. They may not even have vocalization in any way we would recognize. I loved the movie Arrival. Showed that the extraterrestrials communicated not in any audible signal.
Right. Yeah, very good movie that is worth watching if you have not seen it, Arrival. So it also speaks to the nature of knowledge, right? I think in a bit we want to talk about this, but, there are different ways of knowing things, right? And there are different degrees of certainty that we can have, right? Any scientist will tell you that science is provisional, right? It's our best belief, our best understanding until we get more data. And when new data comes in, we might change our mind and we might start, changing dates, changing ways, whatever it is, start to understand things differently. And then there are some things that don't fall into the realm of science, like beauty and art and subjective experience that have value and are ways of knowing things, but are subjective. Math is, and geometry is the one thing that is not provisional. A prime number is a prime number. 2 + 2 = 4, whether you like it or not, right? So it sets up this conversation of the provisionality of knowledge. Go ahead, Maria. Say.
I before that happened, they sent a message. They communicated with other kind of observatories or other people in other countries just to make sure that they were not fooling themselves.
Exactly.
And that's another way to kind of try to be more objective about stuff, kind of testing your hypothesis, which I really liked.
And she even said to the other guy, prove me wrong. Tell me this is not an AWAC plane. Tell me it's not this. And so they did set that up. Go ahead, Russ. You were going to say something.
No, I was just saying, yes, you can really feel the hand of Carl Sagan in some of the script. Certainly this part, certainly he would have strongly advocated for mathematics as the universal language. Yeah. He's, there's also just the sense to, again, setting up that she already had a lot of good integrity, discipline. There's a way that rationality and integrity kind of work together here.
Yes.
That being honest and not going beyond what you actually know and understand is a discipline. And it takes a certain integrity. And you really come to respect, for all of her interpersonal shortcomings, you come to really respect Ellie's character in that integrity. And they show that repeatedly throughout the film. Truth, right?
Are you interested in learning more about our approach to the Enneagram? Go to awareness-to-action.com and check out our certification program. We offer a clear, concise, business-friendly, and science-minded approach while maintaining the depth of traditional approaches to the system. At Awareness to Action International, we're the leading innovators in the theory and pragmatic applications of this system to all aspects of the work environment, including leadership and personal development, team building, diversity and culture, and managing change. However, this approach is not just for the business world. A lot of people who attend our trainings do so for their own self-development or spiritual growth. Our certification program is one of only a handful of curricula accredited as a school by the International Enneagram Association. It is currently being conducted virtually and combines live sessions with asynchronous learning. Again, find out more at awareness-to-action.com.
I'll say something that might be politically incorrect. Maybe that's why this movie was not so interesting for people in the US. Yeah. It's because what's interesting about that, and I'm just generalizing, and but because I was looking at, watching the movie, and I watched it when it came out, but that was just too many years ago. And because I was looking at point 5, it was fascinating to me to see all these details, because I care about kind of intellectual integrity and being objective and all of that. I thought that there were so many messages that were fascinating. But if you're not into that, if you don't appreciate that kind of search, then this movie might be uninteresting. A science fiction movie without necessarily a deeper message.
Yeah. And actually, in response to what you said, Maria Zain, this scene, the beginning of the scene, and actually in parallel, it was obvious the dynamic with the 0.7, the whole lot of excitement about just receiving a pattern, a kind of pattern, and coming up with this overwhelming information, the coordinates, the frequency, the all of that. So it was like she was like having a complete orgasm about having this this discovery or something like that. So I guess they had, maybe Maria Jose, they needed to have this mix in order to make it successful for the American taste. So with the objectivity, they needed to have this whole lot of excitement as well. But it's still, part of the Type 5 dynamics.
Yeah, and I'll correct myself because it was an unfair statement. I think that the Western kind of world, we might not have appreciated that search for truth as much as the movie was conveying. It's.
Well, but I think you're onto something here, because what I was struck by watching the movie is how much these themes are even amplified now, right? Distrust of science, right? That is a big issue in society today, okay? The way people react to threat, okay? Then it was aliens and the potential threat of that. Today it's COVID, right? And what happens to people when they feel threatened in some way, and how they react intellectually is a really important message of this movie, I felt.
Yeah, sometimes the facts will not bring us the message we want, right, or the message we fear. And those tend to be the main motivations for a lot of humanity. The other thing I share with you as 5 geek out kind of thing, so take a little dip into my mind and how I watch movies. There was something else I appreciated about the film at this point, that they were doing their best to have the science in the film have the quality of integrity of her character. For example, and you'd have to really be watching this from a certain, observation deck, as they're describing the signal at first and realizing it's coming from the star Vega. They say, almost as an aside, but Vega is a young star. It's younger than our star. Right. The chance there'd be an older civilization there doesn't make sense. And, so my little five brain, that little factoid went in. So I said, how are they going to handle that? But they did. Because when she goes on this sort of hyperspace voyage to Vega, turns out it's not where they are. It's just a switching station for a network of hyperspace links.
Yes. It's like a VPN link, right?
Yeah. So that's oh man, that's so cool. They dealt with that. And so often in movies they don't. The logical inconsistencies can be vast. And I always notice that. And I say, okay, Russ, this isn't probably aimed at you.
right. And also the whole wormhole idea was very good too, right? It wasn't this idea of putting people on a spaceship and flying them, 6 light years, which is about 24 trillion miles, and you could never really get to. So I agree, very well done, and the science was really strong here. So they find the message. First, it's just an auditory message of the beats in prime numbers, and then they realize, wait a minute, there's a visual thing here as well, working at another layer, and they see the picture, and it's the recording of Hitler, which of course terrifies all the government people here. Wait a minute, they're sending Hitler to us. This can't be good, right?
The first thing they see is a swastika.
A swastika, yes. Yes, right. Always a bad start, and it sort of gives credence to Stephen Hawking's point of view, was that we should do whatever we can to avoid extraterrestrials, right? Because the chances of there being a good outcome are pretty low. Who's to know, really? But that was his perspective. So, and then they start seeing these plans, these schematics that they can't quite figure out until she is summoned by S.R. Haddon again, who is they don't quite explain, he's an industrialist of some sort who at this point is living on an airplane because it is good for him to, how would he say, keep his interests mobile, right? And there was an interesting comment when she's getting onto the plane where the guy says, you're really lucky, he doesn't land for many people, right? So again, we get a bit of a five-ish theme there in Haddon as well. Okay, so he gives her the key to decoding
kind of
these
a
things.
Bill Gatesian character there.
Yes. I had read one time who that character was based on, and I couldn't find it this time. It was based on someone. Her character was based on a scientist.
Yeah,
as well,
a real person. I've seen interviews with her.
Yes. So they start building this machine. Okay, that I'm not really sure what it is, what it's supposed to do, but they start to build it. And they are going to have to pick someone to go on this trip. She wants to be the person, but this is where she's reunited with Palmer Joss, who is now an advisor to President Clinton, a spiritual advisor. He works against her being the candidate to go, and she is competing against her former boss, Drumlin, the Tom Skerritt character.
Yeah. Can I add one thing here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because this is very five, and something I'm noticing and up against often. The whole reception of the signal and the uncovering of what it meant was very five-ish. Mm-hmm. Because most people just finding the beats, they say, amazing, we got it. And that would have been the end of the search. We got it now. We know the Enneagram now.
Yes.
Right? We know it. We got it all. We figured it out. It's this. Have a nice day. No. Mm-hmm. And then they saw what appeared to be just noise. It just looked like noise, but there was some kind of peculiar pattern to the noise. And they start looking at it. And then the noise ends up being patterns. And then they discover it's these sheets of a schematic. But then they can't figure out how to put it together, but at least they found that. And again, well, it's just one of those things. But then our industrialist, Haddon, with greater resources and the right mindset on his team to find it, realizes you're thinking, and this is what I'm telling people in the Enneagram all the time, you're thinking two-dimensionally. It's actually a multi-dimensional figure. Higher intelligence works with more than one vector at a time. Low intelligence is flat world.
Yes.
And so entering into this multidimensional thing, it turns out to be the schematic is how to build the spaceship that she goes on. Again, also making a little statement about these apparently just far out ideas are what drive innovation, technology, and everything our civilization is based on. So that was really an important part of the movie. But I think it's also a lesson in persistence, staying with the question, not assuming you've got it already, yes, and open to new ideas. I used to say having a strong position usually means your head center has stopped working.
Yeah. It's the embrace of uncertainty.
Yes.
I think that separates good scientists, good thinkers, and it's something that fives tend to have.
Yeah, you have your framework, and you couldn't go anywhere without that, but you're willing to use it as a launching pad, this case literally, into unknown territory.
There was also, you said something earlier that I wanted to also comment on about this idea of integrity. And this is something we always talk about when we talk about fives in organizations, is one of the values they bring is this integrity, because they're so matter of fact, right? In a literal way, right? Well, this is what the facts are. And our emotions don't matter. So I'm going to tell you this, whether you like it or not, right? Which can be a little off-putting at times to people. And we see that in Ellie for sure, right?
Yeah.
Her style is a little bit abrasive at times. But it's, it's one of the reasons you want fives around, right? To be able to tell you these things. And they do, serve that role so well of the advisor. It's the Merlin, the magician. It's Gandalf, all these sort of characters.
Yeah. In another completely different kind of setting, I think of the movie The Big Short.
Mm. Yes.
And there was a five said, look, the real estate market is going to have this meltdown and and nobody wanted to listen to the guy. It's not what they want to be true. It's never done that before, but he just said, okay. And he made himself a billionaire.
Yes. Jose, were you going to say something?
Yeah, that they tell you the truth of what they think, whether you like it or not, and whether they like it or not. And I think that's really valuable.
Yes.
And that they're not attached to an opinion if they see data that disconfirms it, and they're willing to go ahead and say it, like with when she was asked if she believed in God. She was just not able to say that she did. Not only because they didn't want to hear it, because they probably wanted to hear that, but she was just not able to articulate it and say something that wasn't true.
Yeah, and jumping ahead a little bit, I wouldn't say probably if you asked her at the end of the movie, "Do you believe in God?" I think you'd have still got the same answer. She had an experience of something beyond her understanding. But she kind of knew, honestly, that someone asking her that question was not asking about what she experienced. She was asking for a certain concept that she didn't really find to be true.
Yeah, and I think, too, that's one of the so you go back to 1997, and this conversation in this direct a way about whether there's a God or not is pretty bold, right? I mean, this is before Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and all those guys, the Four Horsemen came along. And so it was a very bold conversation. And what I liked about the way she answered those questions is, I'm a scientist and I need, for a question like that, objective data. And I don't have the objective data that shows me that a God exists, right? And and so this is the nature of how she approaches things, which is the right way to do it, right? I can't answer that because I don't have the data, right? She's not saying, well, no, it's silly to believe there's a God. Of course there's no God. She's saying, I don't have the data, and so I can't commit to that point of view. So now the Drumlin is a bit savvier when it comes to this question, right? Because he
probably doesn't believe either.
Yeah.
right. Yes. But he's not dumb enough to say so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so he is a more politically astute character, and he kind of plays up, the importance of God and representing the beliefs of the average American when it comes to these things, right? So again, real nice distinction between the 3 and the 5 in this.
Oh yeah, because he was plenty smart and a good scientist too. See, people always, people often underestimate the intellectual capacities of really all of the Enneagram types.
Exactly.
Any of the 9 types can be a genius.
Yes.
I actually met Carl Sagan, and
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I think he was probably a 1.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
Probably a 1. I don't think he was a 5. But he was very fairness and justice and fair play was super important to him. And he was, actually, he might have also been a 3. Don Riso thought he was a 3, actually. That he was wonderful at presenting scientific ideas and languaging them in a way that people who weren't necessarily educated in science could follow and appreciate the beauty and the value of the ideas. So that's very plausible too. But I don't think he was a 5.
No, I don't either. I mean, he was very astute at not alienating people, right?
Yes,
I mean,
he was very political guy.
Yes.
But he would step up to the plate for political issues when there was something at stake. He had his statements about the nuclear proliferation, for example, things like that.
Join us next week for part 2 of our conversation with Russ Hudson about the movie Contact and Enneagram Type 5. We'll also be discussing the importance of critical thinking skills in all aspects of life, including our spiritual lives. Look forward to seeing you then.